Inflation hits people on a fixed income hardest, so millions of today's seniors are having a hard go of it instead of enjoying their golden years. But if you're struggling financially, you should know about the many laws that protect seniors, because society doesn't want grandma having to choose between paying old bills and buying medicine and food that she desperately needs today. Attorney Eric Olsen, executive director of the Helps nonprofit law firm, has helped many seniors facing tough choices like these. The former bankruptcy attorney offers hope and wisdom to struggling seniors. In this video, he describes the 6 things financially struggling seniors need to know but don't. Share his knowledge with a senior you love. Hey, it's Jeff Hoyt, editor-in-chief of SeniorLiving.Org, and today, once again, I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric Olsen. Eric's an attorney, and he's the founder of the Helps nonprofit law firm that helps seniors and others who are struggling with debt. Welcome, Eric.
Good to be here with you today, Jeff.
So, lots of struggling seniors. The times are tough with inflation, and some people have to go back to work as seniors to make ends meet. And if you're struggling, like, every little bit of help can, help make your life better. So I'm wondering, do you know anything that struggling seniors should know about but don't?
I guess the most important thing seniors that are struggling financially should know is that their retirement income is protected by federal and state laws. That includes your Social Security, your pension, your VA benefits, disability income, your IRA, 401ks, virtually any type of retirement income. Social Security has been protected from its very inception in the 1930s. And then in 1974, there was a law passed called Employment Retirement Income Security Act that protects almost all pensions are protected under that law, which is called ERISA. And if you have a pension that's not protected under that federal law, I can assure you there's a state law that protects the pension. I've been an attorney for 45 years and dealt with tens of thousands of bankruptcies and then helps for the last 14 years. I've never seen a senior get their pension garnished. It's protected, okay? And they're not going to lose it to a debt collector.
So when you say protected, that's what you mean, is that if they owe money somewhere, nobody can grab it. Nobody can garnish it.
That's what I mean. The only exception is the IRS can take 15% of a Social Security, but that usually can be stopped. And if you owe past due child support, but that's very rare. So no, your pension is protected from debt collectors, and so is your Social Security and other forms of retirement.
When you say protected, nobody can take that money. They can't just take part of your Social Security. But what happens when it goes into your bank? If you put it in your checking account or your savings account, can someone grab it then?
No, and I'll explain why. That's probably the second most important thing seniors should know. Okay. Back in around 2012, there was a federal rule put into place that instructed banks and credit unions that they were to automatically protect twice the amount of federal benefits, such as Social Security, that was deposited into a bank account from garnishment. In the event that someone had a judgment against them and a bank was garnished, then the bank, under this federal rule, had to examine the account, and they could determine where the money came from. And if Social Security or a federal benefit went in there, like a VA benefit, or if you worked for the post office, that's a federal benefit, or a federal employee benefit, if that went into the bank account, twice the monthly amount is automatically protected by your bank from being taken in a bank of garnishment. So if you got $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 is protected, regardless of the actual funds in the account at the time of garnishment. So you can have money in there from any other source. As long as it's less than twice the amount that you get in Social Security each month, that sum is protected by the bank. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, that account, it's protected also, but just not automatically. You'd have to file some papers to get it released. But most of the seniors that we talk to, it helps. They tell me, Eric, I never have more than twice the amount of my Social Security in my bank account at any one time. And I say, well, you don't have anything to worry about. It's protected by your bank. But I tell them, Your bank manager doesn't understand that, but the department in the bank that deals with garnishments, they don't understand it. And I would guess that 999 out of 1,000 attorneys don't understand that rule because they don't practice in that area, and it's a fairly new rule. So yeah, their income's protected in their bank account.
So for someone like me, I get a paycheck. If I were sued for not paying my credit card bill, for example, I could have my wages garnished, or someone might say, we're going to reach into your bank account, after going to court, of course, reach into my bank account and take the money that's owed. But for a senior who is on Social Security or a pension or taking money out of their retirement accounts, they're protected both when the money comes in and when it's in their bank up to a certain limit.
That's right. And even if you're a senior and you're working, there's laws, there's federal laws and state laws that protect certain amounts of your income. So even if you're working and a senior, a lot of times all your income will be protected. Can't be taken from you.
And that may depend on what state you live in.
May depend on what state you live in.
Good to know. Well, that's two important things that financially struggling seniors should know and may not. And I do know a little bit about debt collectors. So if I owe someone money and the debt collectors start calling and sending dunning letters and whatnot, they're not just going to go away. So is there anything you can do to stop harassment from debt collectors?
Yeah. So let's say you're a senior. Okay, I know that my Social Security is protected, it's safe in the bank account, but if I don't pay these bills, the creditors can call and make my life miserable. Okay. So in 1978, there was a law passed called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Now, that law regulates what a debt collector can and cannot do. And one of the provisions of that law is that if a debt collector is sent what is called a cease and desist letter, and that letter tells a debt collector that the person no longer wants to receive communication regarding the debt collector can no longer legally send him a demand letter or call him on the phone about the debt. They could still sue him, but they can't harass him. They can't call him on the phone or send a demand letter anymore. They have to leave him alone. So, that's what HELPS does. The law also provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to communicate with the attorney. They can't communicate with you. So what HELPS does is we represent seniors nationwide that want our help, that struggle. We send cease and desist letters out to the debt collector or creditor they owe money to, and the communication dries up so our clients lives lives of peace, free from creditors harassing them anymore. A lot of these seniors, they can't afford bankruptcy. They don't need to file bankruptcy because their income is protected. But if they don't pay their debt, creditors can make their lives miserable. And so, with HELPS or by sending a cease and desist letter, you can get the creditors off your back so you don't have to worry about being harassed by creditors anymore.
It's great that you can stop getting the calls and the letters and whatnot, but they can still sue you. So what do financially struggling seniors need to know if they do get sued for an unpaid debt?
You would think that, if a creditor understood that you're on Social Security, your income's protected, they might not worry about suing you, but they do occasionally file lawsuits. Okay. Not all the time, but they do a fair percentage of the time. Some people think if they don't pay a debt, they're automatically going to be sued. Not so, but they can be sued. And a lot of seniors are really scared about being sued. Maybe they've never been sued before. What's a lawsuit? Is when a creditor files papers with a court saying that you owe a certain amount of money, and then someone comes to your house, knocks on the door, and it could be a sheriff deputy giving you a court notice, a summons and a complaint saying that, you owe this money. If you want to contest it, you have so many days to do it. Otherwise, they're going to get a judgment against you. So it can be pretty scary if you don't know what your rights are. And a lot of seniors are worried about being sued.
But you're saying the bottom line is even if they are sued, that because they're judgment-proof, they can't be collected on.
Yeah, because of that, they really don't need to go to court. Okay. So when they get a lawsuit, sometimes it'll have a date and time. But if you read it carefully, it says that's if you're going to contest the item. But if you owe the money, you don't really need to contest it. If you do nothing, they're simply going to get a judgment, but they can't collect on it because they can't Can't take your protected income, your Social Security, your retirement. They can't touch your bank account. It's protected. You're what's called judgment proof. They can't get at your money. And that's what seniors need to know. So if you're sued, you don't necessarily need to go to court. You don't have to go to court, uh, especially if you owe the money. Now, if you don't owe the money, you can always contest it. But if you do owe the money and you're judgment proof, meaning you have protected income, no, you don't need to go to court. So you don't need to worry about that.
Well, that's really reassuring. But what if you own property? What if you own a home or a car or something? Could they take that away from you?
Every state has laws that protect uh, specific amounts of property, some equity in a property. For equity means if you owe something on something and it's worth this, uh, and what's the difference? That's your equity. And some states protect a certain amount of equity in a home, and some states protect all the equity in a home, or they protect a certain amount of equity in a car, and maybe household goods, and the list goes on. Some states have what's called Many states have what's called a wild card exemption. So it means if you have something that's not on the list of exemptions and it's worth, $5,000 or whatever, that amount is protected, even if it's not on the list of state protections. But what seniors need to understand is that it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors. Now, what I mean by that is if you had a credit card that sued you and they got a judgment and you had property that was worth more than what your state exemption was, you don't really need to worry about a creditor coming in and trying to take that property. It's not their practice to do that. Okay. Although legally there is a process for them to do it, they just don't do it for a whole lot of reasons. It's really complicated. It's expensive. It can be stopped. And a lot of times seniors' property isn't worth what a senior thinks it's worth. So, and I'm telling you, as an attorney for 45 years and, been doing this for years, they don't go after your personal property if they get a judgment. I guess the only exception would be is if you had a particular creditor, maybe it was a relative that was really angry at you and someone, but generally a consumer judgment creditor would never go after your property that's not protected under state law.
Well, that's really good to know.
Yeah.
My only question is, it's like if a senior owes their credit card bill and can't pay it, even if they're sued, you're saying Visa is not likely to go after their property. But if they bought a car over time, let's say, uh, they wouldn't be able to not pay for the car loan and still keep the car, right?
Well, that's right. And I guess that's the last thing really that seniors really need to know about. See, there's two types of debt. There's a unsecured debt like a credit card, and then there's a secured debt. Now, what's a secured debt? That's where you put something up to secure the debt, which means if you can't pay the debt, they can take the item. And a good example is a car. When you buy a car and finance it, the car may be registered in your name, but the title is held by the lender, which means if you don't make the car payment, the car lender can repossess the car. Now, that'd be the same thing with a home. If you're buying a home, you're buying the home, it's in your name, but there's a mortgage. So the lender has a mortgage on the home, and if you default on the loan, they could eventually foreclose on the home. Okay. Same thing with an RV. Okay. If you got an RV, it's like a car. They could repossess the car. Or like a solar loan. Most solar loans are not secured by the house, but they're just by the solar panels. So, and then sometimes lenders will take a security interest on some of your household goods. It's called a non-purchase money security interest. They'll list your TV, stuff like that. Well, what's important to remember is that if you've got a secured loan that you can't afford to pay, like a car, and you could sell the car and pocket the cash if you have equity in it, but if it's not worth what you owe, you could always let the car go back. Okay. Same thing with an RV. Okay. You could stop making the solar payment if it's not a mortgage, but if it's a UC lien, the only thing the creditor could do is repossess the solar panels. They won't do that, but that's their only remedy. So yeah, if you have a secured loan, you can stop paying that too. They could repossess the item that's secured. Now, as far as household goods, some high interest lenders take security interest in household goods, but they're never going to come pick it up because it isn't worth anything. And if they did come and pick it up, you don't have to let them in their house. They'd have to go through a complicated procedure to try to take those things that they listed on that list. They just do it for intimidation purposes. Okay. So no, if you have a secured debt that you can't afford to pay, you can always let it go back. Like a home, for example, if you're upside down on the home, you could stop payment, or you could sell the home, pocket the cash, and not have to worry about a house payment. If you had a home that had a lot of equity, you could get a reverse mortgage, so you no longer have to make the mortgage payment anymore. So yeah, if there's a secured loan that you can't afford to pay, there's a solution.
But a lot of seniors have pride. A lot of them, work their whole lives and paid all their bills. And it's hard for them to wrap their head around the concept about not paying a debt that they truly owe. Do you find seniors in that position?
Oh, all the time. And I understand that, 30, 40,000 bankruptcies and working with seniors every day, tens of thousands throughout the United States. Seniors don't intentionally get in these problems. Life puts them there. Maybe a spouse passes away. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe they've been helping out their kids, and it can be any number. Maybe they got an illness. It can be any number of reasons that put them in the position where they're at. And I can understand these feelings of guilt. Well, seniors should understand that lawmakers have protected their income for a reason. We want them to be able to take care of their basic needs. Okay. When you made the debt, you signed an agreement and you pay an interest. Part of the interest that you pay factors in that certain percentage of seniors or persons that owe the debt aren't going to be able to pay it. So the banks are still making plenty of money. They're not losing anything. And our clients, I think they would pay the money if they were able to, but they're simply not able to. Okay. So, yeah, you shouldn't feel guilty if you're in this situation. And yeah, you don't need to feel guilty. It's just life, and society wants you to have this money for your needs.
And that's why these laws that you mentioned have been passed, because
Right,
society
right.
wants seniors to get food and medicine, not pay for bills that they may have rung up.
Yeah, and we don't want them being harassed and living miserable lives. And that's why he helps us here, so that we can receive the communication, so they don't have to deal with the debt collectors. They can always call us if they have a question or if they're worried or scared, no matter how many times. We don't want seniors to have to worry. They don't need to.
Great. Well, we'll put the number up on the screen. Basically, we can't cover every individual case here, but you're willing to take calls from our viewers if they have questions about this. So really appreciate you setting seniors straight on things they may not know that could really help them if they did know it.
Thanks for having me here today, Jeff.
Thanks, Eric.